Good evening, everyone. Just kind of checking things out as I always do with my live streams. Hopefully, you're having a nice Friday if you happen to have today off, which I know many people do, not everyone, especially if you're working hospitality or retail or service industry. I'm going to be one of those people real soon where my schedule is not going to be a Monday through Friday, as most people know. But let me just make sure that I see everything technology wise, since it's been kind of up and down the last few streams that I've been doing. And oh, there we go. See my big bald head. So that's always what I'm looking for. And for those that aren't familiar with me, I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts, and I'm based here in Seattle, Washington. And I've been doing a series of virtual interviews since May 22nd, and it's just been an amazing time for me to stay connected with artists that I know, artists that I don't know, some folks that are local to the area that I got to find out more about, and from all walks of life, all different types of artists, from photojournalists to theater people, musical theater, opera, ballet, film, television, craft beer, just a wide variety of things, dance for sure. And so coming up, speaking of performance art and dance, tomorrow at 12 p.m. noon Pacific Standard Time, I've got Sony Voodoo coming. And for some of you who have been watching the Fun Table sessions that I normally do on Friday nights, Sony's been a guest twice now. And she has the unique distinction of being the only person that I have never actually formally interviewed. She's somebody that I met at some of the shows here. So I thought it was high time that I brought her on for a formal interview where it's just her and I can talk to her more about her background and learn a bit more, and all of you can do that as well. And again, hopefully having a nice Friday night. It's 5 o'clock over here on the West Coast, and yeah, it's been a pretty good day for me personally. And yesterday the holiday was different than normal, but it was still pretty good. So I don't really have any complaints. I'll give my kingdom for a working washing machine though. But that's another story for another time. So let's kind of get into things. My guest today is a lifelong music fan. As a photojournalist, he covered the Northwest music scene like no one else. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Phillip Johnson. Phil.
What up, dudes and dudettes?
How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing good. I promised my, very much small handful of friends and family and RN followers a very awkward interview. So let's get this started.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And one of the, again, like I mentioned in my intro, one of the pluses of doing these interviews is that I've gotten a chance to really get to know people that maybe I just knew in passing, especially when you're here in the Seattle scene. So
Hmm.
I'm curious to find out more about your background. So let's kind of start there. I mean,
Okay.
where were you born and where were you raised and all that good stuff?
I was born in Groton, Connecticut, and my dad was in the Navy, so we moved around quite a bit. And so I don't really remember Connecticut so much. I'd say that Seattle and the surrounding area, Bremerton, really is where I was raised. And my dad was in a submariner there at the naval base out in Bremerton, Silverdale area. Then we moved around to Central California, moved back to Seattle, where I spent elementary school through high school, and then eventually went to Vegas as for college, and then started my hotel career and moved to Seattle, San Francisco, Atlanta, opened up hotels in Texas and Jamaica and all over the place, really. So, but Seattle's home, I would say, and that's really where I intend to be probably later on in my life, and that's where I'll lay down my roots.
Oh, wow. Awesome. So how long have you been in the hotel industry then? How many years?
That would be, geez, 19 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I haven't had too many jobs. I was a sales clerk at J.C. Penney, and then I went into hotels, and then that was it.
Okay, no, that's see there we go. There's something I knew that you were in the industry. I just didn't know. I didn't think it was that long, but okay.
I'm not one to jump around jobs. Once I find myself comfortable, I'm just like, okay, we'll just roll with it and see what happens.
No, and that's really good. I mean, if you found
Mhm.
something that is working for you, then yeah, more power to you for sure. I'm the opposite. I'm trying to find that job. So no, all is good. So you were moving around a lot based on what you just said. And when
Mhm.
did your love of music first kind of grab a hold of you?
Um, I'd say like the infancy of it was when I saw Dave Matthews Band on an episode of
Hmm.
SNL. Probably like 96 ish, I'm guessing. I don't know. It was in that phase where Dave Matthews would wear pajama pants on stage, and he was like this skinny twig of a kid, and he had that black guitar that had like no opening in the middle there, and it was kind of mind-boggling to me because at that point in time I was listening to mostly like hip hop, and I was like, oh, I kind of identifying with this right now. And then I just started to, like allowed music to be more a part of my life from that point forward, going into like pop punk, and then getting the folk music a lot. And then by the time I got to Atlanta back in 2010, my buddy Matt Arnett, he's big in the arts community there. He owns a old grocery store that's his home, and the grocery he called his little house concert series the grocery at the grocery on home, which because the old grocery store was on Home Street over in Grant Park in Atlanta, and I went to some of those house shows there. I just bought a camera and I started to take pictures at the house shows, and it kind of just evolved from there. Really, I loved getting to know the musicians and getting to know the people who appreciate that type of environment and that type of music too, which was all different kinds. And then it just became like this laborious passion of mine. Not very laborious, as in it took a lot of work, but I just identified with the fact that I like taking pictures of musicians and like to see how people really present themselves and how they become present on stage and giving off that piece of themselves. And it's a really beautiful thing when you find that performer who really just kind of lays it all out there.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. And I'm curious about when you started taking photos at the house shows. Are you self-taught? Did you take any kind of classes at any time, or
No,
just kind of went for it?
I just went for it, and it was pretty bad at the at the beginning. I didn't really know much. I just brought a camera and I shot on auto, and I was told no flash, and I was like, "Cool, Dad, I'm fine." And looking back on some of it, I made a book for Matt, and looking back, I mean, some of the photos were decent, but a lot of the photos were kind of just they weren't technically sound, but I think it captured the spirit of things, which is what I think what's most important there. And it was there was no classes until like later on when I tried to just read up on the basics of what you should be looking for, especially in concert photography. And then at that point in time, when I started meeting other photographers and seeing their work, and then reaching out to them to find out little tips and tricks, then that's when I started to figure out how to put out of mind the technical side of things. I know what to do right away. That way I can focus on just really composing the moment that you're trying to capture.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting hearing every photojournalist's background and what kind of got them started. And some people are kind of did the local route, and some people I've talked to, they actually got lucky and kind of jumped into some big event and completely over their head. But that's kind of how they went.
Well, that's how
Uh,
my first concert felt. Believe me, like my first like real one where I got to do something for an outlet.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. I felt like I didn't belong when I was first in a photo pit.
Oh yeah.
Because I'd see
Oh
people,
man.
yeah, I'd see people that I knew, and I felt like I didn't want to get in their way. So I was like kind of on either side of the stage. I was not right in the middle where I probably should have been, but I just didn't feel comfortable. Plus, you have all the fans screaming behind you.
Yeah.
Took a while.
Well, I was one of the things that I really had to get over was like not being in the way of the fans
Mm.
and like not standing in their way. I would always be like crouching and shooting upward, and it's not the best angle, of course. And you just got to realize you're only going to be there for probably 10 to 12 minutes. It's going to be okay. They're going to be fine with it. Maybe take a picture of the set list for them before the show starts, and so that way they know what's coming up. They'll be your friend after that. That's fine.
That's true. I know one of the early shows that I covered that one of the fans that was right up on the rail was yelling at all the photographers for us to get out of her way. This was before the band even came on the stage, and again, I was pretty new, so I was like gosh, and I understand from being a fan, they probably waited first in line to get to that place on
Yeah,
the rail.
yeah, definitely.
So I get it, but it's like at the same time, we got a job to do, and we'll try to move as much as we can and not be in, stuck in one
Exactly.
spot. But
Oh, that's one of the rules. Don't be in one spot.
yeah, let everyone have that find the sweet spot there, to get their images too, and then move.
Exactly. I
Get
mean,
up.
we're all going to have the same type of image. We all know where there's going to be that one spot we all need to get to. So we'll all just be polite and allow everyone to get there at least once.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've been really lucky, being here. I've never shot anywhere outside of Seattle, so
Hmm.
the folks around here, I just learned from the ones I kept seeing. So
Yeah.
luckily, I had really good role models for me.
There's plenty of good ones in the Seattle area. Believe me, I just the list is so long, and they're all really good people too. It's really nice.
Yeah, I was again so fortunate, just like, and this as well, that I would see people that I'd been following and fans of. So I'm kind of like, oh, I'm kind of intimidated actually, and then
Yeah.
I'm sharing a pit or whatever with them, and then finding out they're super nice and helpful, and
Yeah.
no egos about them, and
No, definitely
so
not. I started following Seattle photographers before I really got into really consistently going to shows and seeing their work. And then when I see them in a pit, I'm like, oh, geez, look at that! It's Jason Tang or it's Sonny Martini. Me
mhm.
and Sonny actually shot our first show together at the Moore for John Butler Trio, and that's the concert I was saying that it felt like something that was over my head, but it was just one concert. But you see these people out there, and you've seen their like established portfolios and like all the incredible photos that they've captured over the years, and you're like, oh man, I'm sharing this space with them right here. So you want to always want to like I think it really revs you up and gets you up on your game, and then you figure out later on that you're like, oh wow, I can be semi decent at this too.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I remember Mike Savoya.
Oh yeah,
He this was like probably
how can you miss
2006.
the guy?
Yeah, he's awesome. And I just remember standing before this band came, like one of the opening bands, and he turned around and saw me. And I had just done an interview with Queensryche, and he was like, "Hey, man, I loved your interview with Queensryche." And I'm like, "Mike Savoya knows who I am."
Well, that picture that I sent you, Mike Savoya took that picture of me.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like it was such a trip for me, the fact that someone that again I'm a fan of, love his
yeah.
work, and then for him to turn around and he could have just stood there and not said anything to anybody, but he was obviously talking to everybody, fans, other photographers, and it was so welcoming that it made me feel really good about that. Maybe if I keep working at this, like you just said, I might be able to kind of make my way up the levels too.
Yeah, and he's just him, him and Neil Sang. I mean, just seeing them together at a show, and if you ever like in a pit with them at a show, they're just two of the nicest guys.
Yeah.
And I don't shoot that much. I would say hard rock or metal, but I remember the first time I shared a pit with Mike. It was actually I don't even know if you want to call it a pit. It was at El Corazon, and there was a pit there because Ghost came
Mm.
and I just happened to be shooting that night, and I have only heard of Ghost and seen their stage show, but I never really got to know them so much, and which is a lot of the concert I did before I started really getting into the local scene. Was I would just watch a couple of YouTube videos or listen to some songs from a artist, and if I liked it and I had a free night that week, I would request the show. That was the same thing with Ghost there, and I didn't realize how big Ghost was. Apparently they like probably a week and a half, 2 weeks before they got to El Corazon, they played Rock in Rio to 100,000 people, and then they went to El Corazon, which holds what 250 or so, and they put a pit there. It was like the narrowest pit ever, and I saw Mike there. I'm like, oh wow, it's Mike Savoya right next to me. This is crazy, and felt kind of that fanboy nature of it all. It was very very fun. It's a great memory.
Wow. I see the shows that I've covered at El Corazon. I've never seen a pit there yet.
I don't think you'll ever will again, unless like a big band like that just happens to be rolling through Seattle and needs to play a show. That's probably why they constructed the pit was, for the photographers, and I greatly appreciated that.
Yeah, I know. Where's the other place for me that there was a photo pit once, was at Numos for me, and
I've never seen. I don't. No, no, no. I have I been in a pit there? I don't know if I have actually.
yeah. See, for me, I assumed once I knew the show was coming, so okay, there's not going to be a pit, so I have to know where to be and all that kind of stuff. And luckily, I actually came up through the crowd before the band came in. I said, I thought I saw some part that looked like a rail. And I got closer to, hey, there's actually a pit here.
Like seeing a pit at the Neptune, which I think they're becoming more and more. That's become more and more of a regularity there, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, yeah, there for sure. But yeah, it's always obviously nice to have a little
Yeah.
bit of space to do your job. But one thing I'm curious about. So you're shooting bands locally, and then when did you start working for an outlet? Like, what was that transition like when you first got the call, basically?
Well, I mean, it was really, I was doing it for a blog called Gorilla Candy, which Jason Tang photographed for,
Hmm.
and he kind of ran as well. And it didn't really, this is when I first got to Seattle. I didn't really know anybody besides, Kristen and Carrie Watt, the people who run Seattle Secret Show, Seattle Living Room shows.
Hmm.
Yeah. So Matt, the gentleman from the grocery over in Atlanta, knows the Watt sisters and encouraged me to go out there to watch some of their shows. I got to know them, and Jason would occasionally photograph for them as well. And then when I looked up his stuff, I was blown away by a lot of the things that he's done. And I saw him at a show once, and I was just asking questions about, hey, how do I how do I go about getting a photo pass, or how do I go about connecting with an outlet? Oh, excuse me. And he just happened to have one, and that's when I just started to shoot just photo covers, not real reviews or anything like that. I think I wrote maybe one review for them, and that's kind of how I got hooked up there. And then by the time that Gorilla Candy started winding down, and Jason was moving on to other things, I that's when I met Sonny Martini, and Sonny was the photo editor for Seattle Music News, and that's where I really cut my teeth as far as my reviewing skills as well and my photo skills too. And Sonny's just a phenomenal help when it came to just set an example of one, how to be professional, but two, how to be such a giving person when it comes to other photographers, and really trying to help them along their way too. And if you've never seen her work, which I'm sure you have,
Hmm.
she's just it's top tier stuff, and she's really was a great motivating factor, and really me trying to get better and such. And I owe a lot to her as far as where I've been able to come as a photographer. So with that, then I just from there, as work started to get more busy and I needed to really try to balance my life out a little bit better, I started to do shows for them. The review process can be a little much too, so I started to do maybe like one or two of those a month, but then go to local shows and to just take pictures and to connect with bands, and to kind of help them out in the process with content, which is king these days.
Okay, yeah, thanks for sharing that. And it's really, again, everyone's stories are kind of different. Some people have been working; they're affiliated with a radio station, or they're
Yeah.
affiliated with some kind of local
Hmm.
press outlet, and some are completely freelance. They're not affiliated with anybody. Like in my case, I'm not affiliated with anyone. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So, just for my own knowledge, is that something where, like you kind of mentioned with Ghost, that if a band's coming to town, does the editor kind of contact the various people saying, "Hey, who's interested in this?" Or do you have to kind of contact them, or is it kind of both?
Well, with the Seattle Music News, it was a small, just local music outlet where there was only a few of us there. I would go to Sunny, and I would request things through her, and then she would try to reach out to the various press people for those bands there, and to request it. Win some, lose some there. Mostly win some. I mean the bands are really eager to have that kind of coverage going out there. And so that's how that all became about. And then I started to really find other areas where there very well could be like a radio station that a show pops up with, that someone may approach me about. And not so much the radio station, but other photographers who who do work with them, who try to maybe give some assignments out as well. And it really is about making connections out there. And lucky enough for the Seattle area, the photographers there are just phenomenal, and they are nice, and you establish that relationship with them, and you'll be working together more often than you thought you probably would be. And it's such a gift, believe me.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like, I know like David Conger does a
Yeah.
lot of stuff around here, and partners with people. Say, I can't cover this. Can you go do it? And
I mean, he is the reason why I got to photograph Dave Matthews Band, and
hmm,
which is incredible to me, to say the least, because they're tattooed on my arm. Jeez. So believe they were my first love in music, and the first night the night I got to photograph them was just a dream come true.
Wow, that's so awesome. I don't know if I've gotten to that point yet where I've had like the bucket list assignment yet. I'm sure it's coming at some point. But
It will.
it, yeah, no, that's so you that kind of reminds me of that. I mean, you shot everything from single person with like an acoustic guitar and a coffee shop type of thing, all the way up to like the gorge, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
Hmm.
So, how did you get? And you kind of spoke to it a little bit, but how did you get so involved with the local like singer songwriter community? Because you are so beloved here, and so when they found out you were moving to Texas,
Um,
it was kind of like the heart was kind of taken
mm.
out of the scene here. And even for myself, I would just have to follow your stuff, and I would see Phil at all these places. So I started finding out about all these amazing artists here because of you. So
um, well, Amy, I think it. First of all, I'm always I'm humbled by that. I mean, that sometimes notoriety is just sometimes uncomfortable with it, but I wholeheartedly appreciate it, and it really does fill my heart with so much love and joy that I was able to give back a little bit to people who've given so much to me as well. And when it comes to the local scene, I would say that it didn't really start with me like stumbling into a show meeting a musician. It came with me um, striking up a friendship with my friend Riley, who I worked with. Her name Riley Jones, and I worked with her at the hotel, and she knew Gabriel Wolfchild,
mhm.
who of Wolfchild or Gabriel Wolfchild, the Northern Lights. And so after striking up a relationship with them, shooting some of their shows, I started to meet other artists and other people connected with artists. Um, that they introduced me to their friends too, and that's how I got to know, say, Devin Sinha, who I lived with for a year, and I was recommended him by a couple of other people, so I stumbled into a show over at the Nectar, and we became fast friends. And then at that point in time, just going to these local venues and being able to just bring my camera and to just really indulge in my passion, with just for the fact that I wanted to do it and I wanted to capture these moments here and then share them with the artists. That's how I kind of got into the local music scene, because you see people trying to be independent and make it out there in such an industry where it's it's saturated right now with people who may be able to. I don't know what the word is for it right now, but I would say singer songwriters are kind of at a disadvantage when it comes to propelling themselves sometimes to make it a little bit bigger, because there's not so much fanfare sometimes in an acoustic guitar and just a person.
Mhm.
And so you got to get your face out there, and so content when it comes to social media and just your brand, if you will. It's currency, and so if I'm able to provide a couple of photos where they can use it, to generate some sort of headway when it comes to a gig or some sort of an event. Hey, that's something that you're almost investing in someone that is should be out there a whole lot more. If that makes any sense, I ramble.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I've had some of the local folks that I'm sure you also know on these interview sessions,
Yeah.
and even if they didn't have something to promote at that time, they started thinking about, well, wait a minute, I can let people know who live halfway across the world that here's the stuff I have put out, here's what I'm
Yeah.
about, and here's what I'm going to be working on in the next, say, 3 to 6 months.
Hmm.
So like Tobias the Owl and
Oh yeah.
Heather Edgley and
Hmm.
Katie Cuffle and
Oh, jeez.
all the same suspects that we both know and
You're
love.
just you're just filling my heart right now because I miss them so much. Tobias. Let's talk Tobias for a second, okay?
You know?
Seriously. It's such a giving person.
Mhm.
I never. I first met him at Big Building Fest. He was a really unassuming dude. And then I just start to see him everywhere, the same places I'm going. And I'm like, geez, this guy gets around here. And then I figure out he's a doctor also. I don't, I, the man blows my mind. And he, he just, he's just a linchpin in that community. And, going back to, going back to saying what, kind of drove you to the local scene. It's just how giving they are to each other, and how much their love they spread around, and it's was just an honor to be a part of it and to be around such people. I feel like it made me a better artist, but it also made me a better person to be around people that just gave unconditionally to each other in an industry where there's honestly competing with one another, and
Hmm.
it's really cool to see people rally around each other that way, and it just kind of motivated me to be better at what I do for them.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it better. And I haven't done not even a tenth of the work that you've done in terms of connections and knowing the folks around here. But just by doing something, so I met Tobias 2011.
Hmm.
He actually played music with me when I used to play music around
Oh
town.
my God, you're a musician?
Yeah, I'm a musician,
Oh,
so
cool.
I kind of bring that little bit to the table. And yeah,
Okay.
he played a couple shows with my old duo, and that's so yeah, just like what you were saying. He's so unassuming, and he just like could be anybody. And then I saw him with his guitar and his amp and all that kind of thing. And then from talking to him and finding out his background, it was just like this is so, and he's like the nicest person in the world. And so it's kind of like what you just said. It really kind of made me want to do that much more. It's like, who else
Yeah.
is out here in this community? Because I know it can't just be you. And say, oh, Mark, have you heard so and so? Have you heard so and so? Like,
Yeah.
no, but I'm going to look them up as soon as I get home, kind of a thing.
I mean, it just spread. I mean, it's turned me on to so much great music, and I mean, you just have people out there just like doing it themselves, and like DIY people. Do you know Wonder?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I first met Wonder, she was off and on doing house shows and others, and like in shows here in Seattle. And then she went on this like very just ambitious tour where she was just driving herself all around the country, and it was so cool just to follow her. Makes some, and she connects with people so easily. It's so effortless for her, and then they gravitate to that energy there, and it was just so cool to see that. And it's inspiring to see someone just, what, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to pack my Prius and go. And that kind of stuff right there. It inspired me to give to these people who are, what they're doing is just trying to share themselves and their gift, to as many people as possible. And if you can be any part of that, then try to, because it intrinsically it feels so good to give.
Yeah, I remember she was actually working the merch for, I forget who the artist was, but it was at the Tractor.
Mm.
And that's actually, so I met her when she wasn't even performing. She was helping out a friend, with the merch table kind of thing. And then she went down to the
People do
Southwest.
that. Other musicians do that for each other, which is awesome.
It is, and you're absolutely right that scene is so supportive of each other, and that's why you see like, hey, I need a violin player, I need something. They just intermix each other all the time,
Yeah.
with projects and shows and some other kind of thing. Oh, so and so needs a help, over here, so that you could even just be like a sixth degree of separation kind of thing. And you'll still find out that
There's
someone.
so many people out there in so many different bands. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and so that I'm just kind of curious, and I'm not going to ask you that question of like, what's your favorite, because there's too many. But what kind of things, like either gigs or moments or things over your career so far kind of just
Mhm.
stand out off the top of your head?
Um, well, recently as in 2000, and was it 19? It could have been 19. Who knows? In any case, I think it was 19 actually. I got to go to Boston to cover the Lost Evenings Festival for my favorite musician, Frank Turner, and I got to cover it all 3 nights, or all 4 nights, excuse me, which was ridiculous beyond measure. And then prior to that, I got to meet him and do a sound check at the Moore in Seattle. And so that past like year and a half of just being able to cover cover Frank in this moment in his career where he's becoming not big, not like if there's a scale from Phil playing guitar in his apartment, as in myself for a party of one, which is me, all the way up to Taylor Swift or Beyonce. He's probably like halfway there, as
Hmm.
far as being big there. But he has this ultra loyal fan base, and I got to cover him and meet him, and just that was incredible to say the least. Yep, we already spoke about Dave Matthews Band, but I would say, you know what? probably the special moments are like album releases or
Mm.
just those concerts that that are just more than just a gig. I would say there was one concert for Sarah Garrettson and the Shadowcatchers, where Sarah Garrettson playing, I believe, with Old Coast and Beth Whitney that night, and so Sarah was celebrating the album release of her album Coyote, and her violin player Natalie was stepping down because she was continuing her research in the medical field.
Mm.
And they had this really special moment where they presented her a lab coat that they all signed, and it's Sarah is just a beautiful person, and her entire band just phenomenally talented. But stuff like that where you see people dancing, dancing on the floor of the crocodile, or just having these very lovely moments with each other in the crowd. And there's one picture I took of her where she's like kind of looking down, she's smiling, and it's just that very in between moment that Danny Clinch talked about in an interview once, where he doesn't want to just capture people singing and dancing or just playing their instruments. They want to capture that moment where they're like immersed in it, and they are so full of happiness that it just shows. And you get to steal that moment a little bit, and I love it just because it's just pure, and to put it plainly.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome. I kind of know, maybe not so much from the concert side for me, but like when I worked with models before,
Uh-huh.
prior to concerts, it's those, yeah, when we're not actually, we're trying to fix something or whatever, and you kind of capture that moment in time where it's like there's a vibe coming off the person,
Hmm.
if I'm talking to them, or maybe there's a moment of levity and they're laughing about something.
Yeah,
And it's like, gosh, I'm so glad I managed to capture that, even though that has nothing to do with the actual quote unquote shoot. Um,
exactly.
that was actually maybe my favorite shot.
Yeah, and it's never really like the prototypical shot that is going to be probably your favorite. Honestly, I mean, I'm able to catch like at the Dave Matthews concerts, I was able to catch him playing guitar and like bolting out that weird voice of his, and just the technical side of it. But it's really him like interacting with his bandmates or taking a moment for himself or being goofy or what have you is the ones that I really enjoy trying to get because it's going to be easy to catch someone singing or playing an instrument. It's not going to be easy to really just key in on when you think something like that's going to happen.
Yeah,
And sometimes it happens so quick that you have to be quick about it or you're going to miss it.
yeah, no, absolutely. That's actually a really good point about you know all of the photographers at any given show and to be able to capture certain things that are they're looking
Yeah.
for. They just know it's going to happen. But that other thing that is really special that happens super quick, yeah, you might just haven't been paying attention at that time and you manage to snap it, but nobody else was paying. They're looking at their their images or checking out their gear, switching lenses or
God,
whatever.
it's so hard not to do that. You got to be confident in the settings that you put on your camera, so that way you can just keep your eye on the show. But
Hmm.
that's why I love like checking out the other photographers' like work after a gig that we all shared, because it's really cool to see everyone's different perspective, and sometimes you take little niblets from each of them into your own style or what have you. I mean, it's nice to have like we were talking about, such a supportive supportive group of people around you that they don't mind the questions, and and it's I don't know. We already used the words. I'm done talking about them. Okay, I'm gonna start crying, or I'm gonna just hop on a flight and move back to Seattle tonight. Who knows?
Now, I know exactly what you're talking about because I'm thinking back to like 2018 when Judas Priest came here,
Okay.
and they must have approved like 17 people in the pit.
Yeah.
And I just remember I parked, and I'd never been down to at the Shower Center in Kent.
Okay.
So I just remember parking there, and I just looked out in my window of my car, and I see like Savoya, Neil, Shar, a bunch of other people, kind of walking down like a gang outside of the
Yeah.
building.
I
So I
can
was
see you can see that like you can see that shot from a movie. They're all just walking in slow motion towards you.
yep.
Like there's this badass crew of people, and and it like we've talked about before. I mean, sometimes you become overwhelmed with with fandom there.
Yeah, I just remember it totally fit the band that was playing. It was like an '80s kind of kind of moment. And it was awesome. Yeah, I joined behind them, and then we all went to the window, to get our passes, and then some other photographers showed up. So it was like, wow, this whole group of people. And then, yeah, once we got in there, just like you said, it was interesting for me to look at it maybe a day or two afterwards to see what did everybody shoot and how did they shoot it, since we're all seeing, we're all in the same spot. Plus, it was like a bunch of crabs in a pot trying to climb over each other.
Oh yeah.
But it was interesting, yeah, to see like, well, he shot that and got that, and it looks kind of similar to mine, but then someone else may have shot something completely different in terms of how the creative eye was working.
Yeah.
And that's
some people like the tight shot. Some people like to get the entirety of the scene where it's that side where you got the musician and then you got the crowd here. It's amazing. Like then you start trying that afterwards. You start trying certain things and see if it works for you. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but that's okay.
Right.
Because I think as a collective, we give the spectator, all these different kinds of perspective, which I think that is valuable. If we all shot the same thing, this would be boring.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It makes it interesting.
Yeah.
For sure. And High Industrial Girl, no problem that you had to do yard work. She put a comment in there, so she's she's watching right now. And so, Phil, with everything that you've done so far, have you had a chance to explore the Texas scene down there, or how are things down there?
I was before. I mean, I moved back. I moved down here in November of last year, and I was getting connected with the SoFar community here. Have you been to a SoFar show in Seattle?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So I was a photographer for SoFar in Seattle as well, and so I got hooked up with the SoFar community down here, and I was beginning to really put my schedule down as a couple of shows a week or a month or what have you, and then I got connected with an online magazine down here too, and I shot one gig for them before the pandemic started to hit. I remember I was at a clothing store called Aviator Nations shooting a SoFar show. And that's the day that I heard that South by Southwest got canceled. And then I'm like, oh, this is real. What's going to be happening in the future? And then probably not more than a couple weeks after that, my hotel closed for 2.5 months. So, at that point in time, and now there's not too many of the clubs open right now that are putting on shows. I'm slowly trying to figure out what's the best place for me to go and to possibly start shooting again. But as we're talking about before the show, I mean, I work in a place where I'm amongst a lot of people, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I expose myself to so many other people too. So it really is. I believe it's a responsibility on my part to make sure that I'm choosing the right places to go to that I feel comfortable going to on a semi-regular basis. So I'm still trying to hash all that out. And so I made a few connections here, made a couple of friends. I just I wish it was a bit more. I do miss the environment.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think like up here, they may have had a few small outdoor things during the summer, but there really wasn't much, and the clubs never reopened again. So
Yeah, I mean it makes me sad that no one is grabbing a drink or a shot at the bar outside of the Sunset Music Room, or it makes me sad that when you get into the Tractor, you grab yourself a drink, then you go over to the right and you got the horns right there. It kind of just uh, it's kind of a gut punch to know that those places don't have people in it enjoying some music.
yeah, for both of us for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I
I
get it.
I follow all the same venues that you probably did when you were up here, and just kind of seeing what they're trying to do, and legislatively what they're trying to get support from,
Yeah.
and not just here, all around the world actually in many cases.
It's gonna take a massive army of us to keep the support up, and I know that we're all doing what we can with what we have right now.
Yeah, and it's also on the flip side. It's been really interesting to see how some artists have pivoted during this
Yeah, you're
time.
right.
I remember early on, so obviously live streaming was kind of a big thing, and then became like, how do we profit from this because we don't have a living right now? So
Yeah.
started doing ticket things, and now you're seeing bundles, and you're seeing multiple streams, and because it kind of, even like for myself, initially they were talking about from like March or whatever, that maybe by June we might be back to quote unquote normal, and, and then
Oh man.
summer came, and now in the fall, now we're almost to winter, and so the writing was on the wall pretty early for me. So even like for me, like, and I'm not tech savvy at all, that I
Mhm.
figured, okay, Alice is going to have a break from their tour for at least 2 months. What am I going to do during that time? So, well, I love doing these, so I should figure out how to do it on myself, on my
And you're
own.
good at it.
Oh, well, thanks. It's been fun. It's been a way for, again, for me to stay connected artistically. And it's like if I didn't do this, it's like what would I be doing right now? I'd be sitting on my couch doing like, God knows what. But it's like
I got Schitt's Creek on the TV. That's like going to be queued up for me. That's what I'm going to be doing later on tonight.
okay. I think I've got a couple movies I'm supposed to be reviewing. See, there's another thing that happened during the pandemic. I
Oh,
got this
you're
info.
reviewing movies?
Yeah.
Where? On your website?
Yeah, so I've been credentialed for about 12 different companies that I review advanced screeners for.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and that happened organically too. When I was just a fan of one movie, and it turns out that company was putting out another one, and it kind of disappeared. And then this year, I saw a little blurb like on Facebook or something. I said, "Oh, coming to VOD." I was like, "Oh, they finally made that movie. Got it all finished." And so I just reached out to them about here's what I've been reviewing since I last saw those creators, and they said, "Oh yeah, Mark, we'll get you in touch with the publicist and all that kind of thing." And
That's
that
awesome.
yeah, that just spun off in all kinds of different directions. So the movie stuff, and then doing virtual interviews because of Alice, I couldn't have predicted it. And we talked about this too earlier. That's like just something that happened, and I'm just so grateful and fortunate that it did happen.
You just got to
Um,
jump on it.
yeah, and everybody knows this kind of story that when Alice first asked me, I was kind of hesitant because I was like, I tend to overthink things, so I'm kind of like, well, what's this gonna? I had like a gazillion questions to ask them about this, and then finally, luckily, some part of me said, what are you doing? Like one of your favorite bands just asked you to basically go on tour with them for like 3 legs, and you're thinking about this, you're pausing, so just say yes and just roll with it, and that's what happened. So yeah, thank you, that part of me that said
Yes.
that.
Just say yes sometimes.
Yeah. Let's see. Another question. We do have other folks that'll be either watching this right now or they'll be watching it later that are also up and coming photojournalists.
Oh,
And so
cool. Okay.
I've talked to a couple of them. What kind of advice would you give somebody that's starting out?
I mean, just go to the small shows. Don't expect that you're just going to just jump up to freaking Lollapalooza or something like that. I mean, you really got to hone your skills and try to figure out what you want to see when you shoot a show. I mean, everybody has a different eye there. So go to the small show with really bad lighting. Bring your 50 millimeter 1.8 lens and just go to town. And don't worry if you feel as though it didn't come out good, because most likely at first it's not going to, and that's okay. But seriously, go to the small shows, connect with those musicians, and just keep on just putting yourself out there. That's really I would say the one of the biggest hurdles is trying to market yourself, so to speak, however much or little as you want to, and you really find out what you like to shoot, what kind of bands you like to shoot, or if you want to just be all over the map too, that's fine too. But really hone in on your technique and make sure that you are you're knowledgeable about it. And then when you get into photo pits, be polite. Make sure you don't wear a backpack. Put your backpack down. Okay, just put it down. And always make sure that you're connected with people, other photographers too, because they are a great resource. They're the ones who taught me so much. I mean, I read a little bit, but it was connecting with people like David Conger, Matt Hayward, Jason Tang, Sonny Martini, Stephanie Dorr. I mean, the list goes on and on about people who either gave me some advice, critiqued some of my pictures, connected me with gigs. I mean, outside of yourself, I mean, they will, if you connect with them and you really you put forth your seriousness about making sure that you're putting out your best work as well. I mean, they'll advocate for you too, to a point, really. But you got to connect with your community, and I would say lastly, just I went down this road once, and it was hard not to, but make sure you're taking time for yourself. Don't go to every show that you want to. Okay, don't. I mean, not everyone could be Neil Lim. All right, he goes to like 240 shows a year. I remember one night I saw him at El Corazon. He's like, "Okay, I'm off to another show. See you later." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to 3 shows tonight." Like, I don't know how you do it, buddy, but I mean, if you can, cool. If you can't, it's okay too. So just have fun out there. Really, really get to know the community out there, and you can never be too knowledgeable about your camera and about what you want to shoot.
That was tremendous advice. Thanks for sharing all of that. I think I resonated with everything you just said.
Especially don't wear a backpack.
It's interesting. I'm thinking back to this one show at the Neptune when there actually was a pit there, and there was a photographer that all of us didn't know. We didn't recognize him from anywhere, so we're all kind of looking. Do you know who that is? Do you know who that is? And because we also didn't see any kind of credential on him, so we kind of like, well,
Ooh,
maybe he's a friend of the band or something, or
could be.
something. That, I've definitely
Did he or she bring the iPad? Because I love that.
no. He had some sort of camera. I don't even think it was a DSLR, but he had something on him. But and he was being nice, but he did have a backpack on him. And I think that was the biggest thing for all of us. We immediately just like honed in on that aspect of it. It's like, hey, who's that guy? Do you know him? Do you know what's the deal with that backpack? Who's going to go talk to him?
Yeah.
Um,
I,
and
I've become comfortable enough to approach people and be like, hey, can you just put the backpack down, please? So that way we can move around and, be ninjas together.
yeah, I'm lucky that I didn't make that rookie mistake early on.
I definitely did. But, someone talked to me about it, and I was fine with it.
The rookie mistakes I made was actually about the photo passes. How
Oh,
they're not,
okay.
they're not supposed to be shown on social media.
Yes, yes, yes. I have done the same thing, and I have stopped since then.
Yep, I had Neil was one of the first people that
Yeah.
privately messaged me and just said, "Hey man, I'm just kind of letting you know this is how it's supposed to work." And I think he even ended it by saying, "You can do whatever you want, but I'm just letting you know that it's not kosher, basically." And then
Yeah.
I tried doing something where I blurred stuff out a second time, and then another person said, "Hey Mark, that's still not okay." I said, "Okay, fine. I learned my lesson. I'm not going to do this anymore."
Well,
Um,
I think we've all committed. We've all broken those unwritten rules there. At least one of them. Throughout all of our time in photo pits there. I missed the narrow. I missed the narrow space. I missed tapping someone on the shoulder. I missed shooting in between people, and that whole trying to trying to explain it to people who ask me what I love most about it. It all comes down to the community. Really, it really does. And the friends that I've made and the music that I've got to discover. I don't think it's something that I would have ever had in my life if I didn't choose to buy a camera with a tax refund once.
hmm. Interesting how things go a certain direction when you weren't thinking about that when you bought that camera, probably.
Yep. Nope, definitely not. I was just like, oh, look, a cool camera to take pictures of when I'm on vacation. Like just the typical reason, really. I didn't know research when I bought the camera. It was either a Canon or a Nikon, and the Nikon was slightly less expensive at Best Buy, and that was it.
Yeah, see, even like for myself, that once I started doing the in concert, in person kind of stuff, I was trying to still do interviews. I
Mm.
wasn't trying to shoot the show. I was like, I don't know how to do that stuff. I was shooting models who don't move.
Yeah,
I was doing stuff where I can control everything, and this is
exactly.
completely the opposite.
And you kind of, and then it's weird how you branch out. I've done some astrophotography. I've done some cityscapes. It's not necessarily like up there on the passion list, but it's still fun to do. I forgot one more piece of advice that is essential. Also, is if you're going to be going to a venue regularly, please make friends with security, and you know what, definitely make friends with security because they are awesome and they are the gateway for you, and they will have your back at the venue. So just make friends with security.
Yeah, no, that is another really good piece of advice, and it
Yeah.
was something that I probably wished I had been kind of told or learned earlier. It took me a while to kind of realize, not because I'm being a jerk, it's just like there were so many different people
Yeah.
working different aspects of the show, and I kept thinking about, well, just make sure you get your shots and be polite to everybody, and then eventually I started, during killing time, is I started talking to some of these
Yeah.
people. Or if I keep seeing them at the same show, the same venues, and they're working, that whole string of things where on Tuesday I'm here, and Wednesday I'm there, and Thursday I'm there. It's like, okay, I should start talking to them because, especially in my case, they start recognizing me.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, don't be a jerk. Go talk to these people.
Yeah. Definitely.
Uh, and yeah, that's definitely some of the best advice about all those pieces. So,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing the Industrial Girls talking about the first band she shot was the Distillers in '03.
Wow.
And I keep my passes in a folder. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I guess
I have a shoebox.
I think who was it? Maybe was it Bill Bungard that has like a photo album, so he keeps them in there, so he can flip
That's
through them.
that's a great idea. They're all just kind of I because I saw Sonny Martini had a lanyard holder, and she would just put them all in there. I started doing that a little bit. Then when
Mhm.
it got too full, I'd take them out and put them in the shoebox. But that's a great idea, putting them in a photo album, which is kind of funny because we're photographers and we should have albums probably.
Yeah, no, see, I'm the same thing. I was using like what Sunny did, just put it into the little pouch, and then when it got too big or whatever, I take them out and I literally put them into a shoebox.
Yeah.
And unless there's something really cool about the artwork, then those go on my wall. But the other ones, there's a bunch of them sitting in there. But yeah, I should.
I'll most likely put them all in some big frame someday and just have them up on a wall somewhere. But I haven't gotten to that point yet. I want more. That's why.
And I've asked the other photographers this because I haven't done this yet myself. Have you made prints of any of your work that's hanging in your place?
You know what? I have prints. I haven't hung them yet though. I got mostly just posters on my wall. Let's see. I think I've given one print away, as a gift, and then I have like a couple framed in my room over there. So I do have some of them framed. I was just gonna someday whenever I have an office or anything like that, I was gonna hang them up then. But mostly just concert posters for right now. But definitely I have some framed right now. Just haven't hung them up.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
It's cool. It's cool when it comes back, though. Believe me, you're like, wow, I got to be a part of this. This is pretty dope.
yeah. I think it's when I was doing the interview with Peter Dervin, he had some of his work behind him, so I was kind of like doing this, trying to look at what was on the walls.
Now, this is mostly just concert photos. Dave Matthews Band, MXPX, and Frank Turner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't done it myself in terms of making prints of my stuff yet, but that'll be coming at some point. So
Yeah.
all right. Well,
I like making prints for other people though and sending it to them.
oh, okay. That's cool. What was this? My Awesomest is Ministry in 2012. Okay, from
Okay.
Industrial Girls. So, but Phil, it was awesome getting a chance to talk with you about
Yeah, man, it was good connecting
everything.
back with you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope
Of
that you
course.
continue to stay safe down there. And yeah, we
Thank you.
absolutely miss you up here.
I miss you guys
Uh,
too. Jesus Christ. I mean, remember when you sent me that interview with Katie and you guys, just when you guys started talking about me, I was like, oh, I miss Katie. Obviously, I miss you guys. I miss everybody. I mean, geez, if I can just wrap my arms around that city and just give it a great big hug right now, I would.
well, right back at you. So yeah, take good care down there, and hopefully I get a chance to talk to you sooner than later.
Absolutely, and make it down here someday when shows start to open up. We can all go to a show together, and just click, click, click. There's actually a song called "Click, Click, Click" by Bishop Allen about a photographer, so you should listen to it.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, that sounds so wonderful. Well, we'll get there at
Definitely. All right.
some point down the road. So,
Well, if I'm
all right,
back up in Seattle anytime soon, I'll look you up. Okay.
all right. Take
All right.
care. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care. Bye bye now.